Chapters 5, 6, and 7 cover child abuse and neglect, sexual assaults, and bullying. Bullying includes some subcategories, such as cyberbullying and also hazing. Child abuse and neglect is something that educators oftentimes defer to law enforcement when they become aware or think that a child's at risk. The police as well as school faculty are mandated by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 119, Section 51A, to report suspected abuse, neglect, or both immediately. Reporting isn't difficult and involves placing a call to the Department of Families and Children's hotline or to the office handling your jurisdiction. There's also a lot of confusion among practitioners, police, and educators alike as to what constitutes abuse or neglect. Many people think abuse is physical, but our text points out that emotional abuse is just as damaging and oftentimes leaves longer-lasting wounds. So if a student reports that he witnessed his parents fighting the night before and describes a scene that seems to be more than a typical argument, is that abuse? I know that the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office has mandated that police file a 51A report if they respond to a domestic violence call, make an arrest, and there happen to be children present in the home at the time the arrest is made, or at the time that the violence took place. Does a situation like this necessarily rise to the level of a mandated report on your part? I think it may, depending on the situation, and therefore would recommend filing a report and leaving the evaluation in the hands of the experts. After filing over the phone, completion of the child abuse and neglect form is mandated as well and should be completed no later than 48 hours after filing over the phone. I think some mandated report is fair retribution from family if the report is screened out, which is the term DCF uses for reports that do not give rise to immediate intervention. As long as the reporter was reasonable in concluding that there could be abuse or neglect or both going on, then there's little, if anything, at all to be concerned about. The form itself is simple and straightforward. Simply complete the biographical information on the victim and the caregivers. I have found it helpful to have this form available as a guide when I make the initial report over the phone. All of the questions the intake interviewer from DCF is going to ask is on the form itself, so it's definitely helpful if you have all of this information available when you make the call. Sexual abuse is another aspect of violence that I consider a hidden crime. Sexual abuse can occur in a child's home or at school. It can be at the hands of a family member, a friend, a teacher, or even a complete stranger. Surprisingly, most cases of sexual abuse by teachers are committed by female teachers on male students. Handling sexual abuse is becoming more and more confusing for educators and law enforcement as the world becomes more and more electronically connected. Students today use technology at an incredibly high rate. Almost 85% of students today use cell phones as a social medium for communicating with friends and family. The rates for other forms of social technology are also incredibly high for young people. One of the most common forms of sexual abuse among young people occurs in dating relationships or in group and social settings. With the increasing popularity of cell phones as a tool to send and receive messages and images, students are being caught more and more frequently sexting, which is the sending of sexual images of other students to one another, sometimes consensual, sometimes not. The CDC has pointed out that sexual violence and bullying are inextricably linked. The CDC reports a high percentage of bullying victims report sexually harassing comments linked to gender, appearance, and/or sexual orientation. The CDC is a valuable resource for research information and facts about bullying. There's also a bullying handbook available for electronic download to anyone interested in learning more about bullying among young people. As I had said before, social media is fast becoming a medium for committing all types of crimes, including bullying. Many of the violent acts we are looking at can be committed electronically. Bullying via electronic means is commonly known as cyberbullying. One of the hurdles schools face in dealing with cyberbullying is the fact that young people today often share passwords and accounts with many of their friends. If their accounts are not shared, they often lack the skills or knowledge to properly secure their account passwords, or simply fail to log out when they are finished on a public computer. Law enforcement is beginning to use social websites like Facebook and Twitter to substantiate criminal cases against offenders. Access by police is typically volunteered by students friendly to the police or victims themselves. Every school in Massachusetts now has a policy on handling bullying, and it is important to make sure you are familiar with your own school's procedures for handling this crime.